Helen is 73, and she walks every single morning, 25 minutes, almost without fail. She has done it for years. Rain, cold, holidays. It is simply part of who she is. She considers herself active, and by most reasonable definitions, she is right. Then one evening she sits down on a low sofa at her daughter's house. When she goes to stand up, something strange happens. Her body leans forward more than she expected. Her hands reach for the armrests without her deciding anything, and she pushes herself up with both arms. She stands there for a second, slightly puzzled by her own body. How can her legs be getting weaker if she walks every single day? Here is the answer, and I want to give it to you now rather than making you wait. Walking is one of the best habits an older adult can keep, and nothing in this video argues against it. But walking and leg strength are not the same physical demand, and your body knows the difference even if you don't. Walking asks your legs to keep moving. Life occasionally asks them to push your entire body upward. Those are two different questions, and being excellent at one does not guarantee you're prepared for the other, which means a person can stay reasonably good at walking while quietly losing some of the force needed for harder everyday moments. So the real question becomes this: what kind of movement protects the strength that walking may leave underchallenged? Let's start with the principle underneath all of this, because it explains far more than one exercise. Your body adapts to what you repeatedly ask it to do. That's the whole rule. Everything else is a detail. Ask it to walk, and it becomes efficient at walking. That efficiency is real and valuable. Walking supports your heart and lungs, your circulation, your endurance, your mood, and it gets you outdoors and moving through the world. If you walk regularly, you have built something genuinely worth having. Please don't stop. But here's the part that catches people off guard. Familiar walking on level ground is not the same physical task as rising out of a low chair. It is not the same as climbing a high step or standing up from a toilet. It is not the same as pushing yourself out of a low car seat. And it is not the same as catching yourself after your foot clips the edge of a rug. Those moments require your legs and hips to produce significantly more force in a much shorter window of time. Think about a car for a moment. A car can be wonderfully smooth cruising on a flat highway for hours. That says almost nothing about whether it has enough power to climb a steep hill in one go. Cruising and climbing are different demands on the same engine. Walking is the cruise, standing yourself up out of a chair is the hill. Both matter. But practicing one does not automatically prepare you for the other, and one perfectly ordinary movement tells you surprisingly quickly whether that hill-climbing ability is still there. Before we get to it though, there's something you need to understand about how this kind of change actually shows up, because it almost never announces itself. Nobody wakes up one morning unable to stand from a chair. That is not how it works. What actually happens is a slow sequence of small adaptations, and each one feels completely reasonable at the time. At first, you stand up normally and think nothing of it. Later, you notice you lean a little farther forward before rising, just to get the momentum right. Then one hand starts touching the armrest, not really pushing, just resting there. Eventually both hands are helping, and you press down through them to get up. Here's the part that matters. At no point in that sequence did you decide anything. Your body simply found workarounds, quietly and efficiently, the way bodies do. And the workarounds go well beyond the chair itself. You start choosing chairs that have arms, without consciously noting why. You avoid the deep, soft couch, and take the firmer seat instead. You take the stairs a bit more slowly and reach for the railing a little earlier than you used to. You carry one grocery bag instead of two and make an extra trip. You pause for a fraction of a second before stepping up a high curb. You put a hand on your thigh and push off it when you stand. None of those are dramatic. Every one of them is sensible in the moment. But here's the insight worth sitting with. People usually reorganize their environment around declining strength long before they consciously think my legs are getting weaker. The adjustments come first. The realization comes much later, if it comes at all. That's exactly why this is easy to miss. There's no alarm, because your body is busy solving the problem for you. And I want to be clear about what these signs are and aren't. They are not proof of disease. They are not a verdict on your health. They're not something to feel embarrassed about. They are simply everyday clues that your ability to produce force may deserve some deliberate attention. If explanations like this help you understand what your body actually needs after 60, subscribing is genuinely useful. That's exactly what this channel is for. Which brings us to a comparison that makes this whole thing concrete. Picture two people, both in their early 70s. Both walk 30 minutes every morning, and both have done it for years. On paper, their exercise habits look nearly identical. Same duration, same frequency, same commitment. Now watch each of them stand up from an ordinary dining chair. The first person leans slightly forward and stands in one smooth motion, without touching the chair at all. The second leans far forward, plants both hands on the armrests, and presses up through the arms. Same age range, same walking habit, very different result. So what actually separates them? It comes down to what each activity demands from the muscle. Walking is made of many repeated, relatively easy muscle contractions. You take thousands of steps, and no single step is hard. Standing from a chair is the opposite pattern. One single effort, and that effort has to raise a large fraction of your body weight against gravity. Those two demands overlap. They are not the same thing. And the body, being efficient, keeps what it uses and gradually lets go of what it doesn't. There's one more layer to this that explains the gap between those two walkers. Your muscles aren't uniform. Some fibers are built for sustained, gentle, repetitive work. Others are built for producing larger amounts of force quickly, and those tend to sit mostly unused during a comfortable walk. It's the second group that matters most when you're rising out of a low chair or catching yourself mid-stumble. And it's the second group that tends to be lost more readily with age and inactivity. So the first walker isn't lucky, and the second isn't lazy. They've simply been asking their legs slightly different questions, and their bodies answered accordingly. There's a further reason this becomes more relevant with age, and it's worth stating carefully. Muscle mass and muscular power do tend to decline with age, and reduced activity can accelerate that. But I'm not going to tell you that decline is inevitable or unstoppable, because that's not what the evidence shows. Older muscle responds to training. People build strength in their 70s, 80s, and beyond. What changes is that preserving strength becomes something you have to ask for deliberately, rather than something daily life provides automatically. So if you wanted one simple movement that directly trains this missing ability, what would it be? It's the sit to stand, often called a chair squat. That's it. That's the whole exercise. You sit on a sturdy chair. You stand up under control. Then you lower yourself back down under control. And you repeat. I know that's underwhelming. There's no equipment, no gym, and nothing that looks impressive. But the reason it works is precisely the reason it looks so plain. This exercise is not valuable because it's difficult or novel. It's valuable because of how closely it matches the real-life ability we're trying to protect. Most exercises are a substitute for something. You train a movement in the hope that the benefit transfers to your actual life. Here, there's almost nothing to transfer. The exercise and the life skill are nearly the same movement. You are practicing deliberately, the exact thing you need to do dozens of times a day without thinking about it. That's a rare and underrated advantage, and it's worth briefly comparing it to the alternatives because that's where it really earns the title. A leg press machine trains similar muscles, but it requires a gym, and you're seated and supported the whole time. Walking on an incline is excellent, but it's still repeated easy contractions rather than one large effort. A deep squat with a barbell would certainly build strength, but it demands equipment, coaching, and joint tolerance many people don't have. The sit-to-stand needs a chair you already own, in a room you're already standing in with no cost and no setup. And crucially, you can scale it in both directions. Higher chair to make it easier, slower descent to make it harder. Very few exercises are simultaneously that accessible, that scalable, and that closely matched to real life. That combination is why it keeps appearing in physical therapy clinics and geriatric research alike. Now let's look at what your body is actually doing during those few seconds, because it's more sophisticated than it appears. When you stand up from a chair, several systems have to cooperate almost simultaneously. The muscles on the front of your thighs, the quadriceps, work to straighten your knees. Your glutes and the muscles around your hips extend the hips and drive you upward. Your trunk has to stay controlled, so your upper body doesn't fold or collapse forward. Your ankles and feet make constant small adjustments to keep you balanced as your position changes. And underneath all of that, there's a piece of physics most people never think about. While you're sitting, your center of mass sits behind your feet. To stand, it has to travel forward and upward until it's positioned over them. That's why the slight forward lean isn't cheating. It's the necessary first step. It's also why trying to stand bolt upright makes the whole thing harder than it needs to be. So a movement that looks like one simple action is really a coordinated effort involving your legs, hips, trunk, and balance system together. Now let's talk about the second half, which almost everyone throws away. Lowering yourself back into the chair is not just sitting down. Not if you do it properly. When you lower slowly, your muscles are working the entire way down, resisting gravity as it tries to pull you into the seat. The muscles are lengthening while still producing force. That's real, deliberate muscular work. Compare that to simply dropping into the chair, where gravity does the job and your muscles largely stop participating. I'm not going to tell you that slow lowering is some magic technique that's dramatically superior to everything else. What I will say is straightforward and true. Controlling the descent means more deliberate muscular work per repetition than letting yourself fall. You're already halfway through the movement. You may as well train both directions. So let's go through exactly how to do the basic version. Start with the chair, because the chair matters more than anything else here. Use a sturdy dining chair or a firm kitchen chair. No wheels, nothing that swivels, rolls, or folds. If you have any doubt about stability, place the chair against a wall so it physically cannot slide backward. Before your first repetition, push the chair firmly with both hands and confirm it doesn't move. It takes 3 seconds, and it removes the single most likely thing that could go wrong. If you're at all uncertain about your balance, set up near a countertop or a sturdy table you could reach. Now sit toward the front portion of the seat rather than back against the backrest. Put your feet flat on the floor, roughly hip width to shoulder width apart. Adjust that width until you feel stable. There's no single correct stance, and your comfort is the better guide. Pulling your feet slightly back, so they're a little behind your knees, usually makes standing easier. Look straight ahead rather than down at the floor. Keep your chest comfortably upright. Now lean your torso slightly forward from the hips. Not a fold, just enough to bring your weight over your feet. Then press down through your feet and stand up. Notice the words I'm using. Press through your feet. Not swing, not throw, not rock. No violent rocking backward to build momentum. No bouncing. No hurling your upper body forward. Momentum can get you out of a chair, but it does that by reducing the work your muscles do, which is the opposite of the point. At the top, stand comfortably tall and let yourself be steady for a moment before continuing. Then reverse it. Send your hips backward first, as if reaching for the seat behind you. Let your knees bend and lower yourself slowly and deliberately. Touch the chair gently. Don't collapse into it, and don't let the last few inches turn into a drop. Keep breathing throughout. This should not feel like holding your breath and straining. And please don't get obsessive about achieving textbook form. The goal is a safe, controlled, repeatable movement, not a perfect photograph. Now, this exercise has one feature that makes it genuinely useful for almost everyone, and it's the reason I'd recommend it over most alternatives. It has clear levels. You can start wherever you actually are today, and there's an honest path forward from there. Level 1 is the assisted version. If standing without your hands is currently difficult or feels unsafe, use the armrests or push off your thighs, or hold a stable support. I want to be direct about this. Using your hands is not failure, and this exercise is not a pride test. An assisted repetition is still a repetition. Your legs are still working. You're still training the pattern. The only genuine mistake at this level would be avoiding the movement entirely. Don't skip it because you can't yet do it the way someone on the internet does. Level 2 is the unassisted version. When you can manage it comfortably, stand without pushing through your hands. Let your arms rest forward in front of you, or cross them loosely over your chest. Keep the chair right there. There is nothing wrong with reaching for it if you need it on a given day. Level 3 is controlled lowering, and this is where the exercise quietly becomes much more effective. Once the basic version feels manageable, take roughly 2 to 3 seconds to lower yourself toward the seat. Count it out if that helps. The specific number matters less than the fact that you're controlling the descent instead of surrendering to it. Later on, if your control is genuinely good, you can add a brief pause just above the seat before sitting. That pause is demanding. Only add it if the rest of the movement is comfortable and steady. And notice what this latter is not. It's not about doing more and more repetitions until you're exhausted. Progression here means better quality movement with less assistance, not larger numbers. which leads naturally to something you can check right now wherever you're sitting. When you stand up from your normal dining chair, what do your hands do? Just observe it honestly. Not the way you do it if someone were watching. The way you actually do it when you're alone and not thinking about it. Do both hands push? Does one hand rest on the arm? Do your fingertips just touch for reassurance, or do your hands stay free? Now, this is not a diagnosis, and I want to be firm about that. It doesn't predict your health, your future, or how long you'll live. Anyone attaching a life expectancy to a chair test is overselling something. It's simply a useful observation about how much assistance your current pattern requires, and it gives you something to track that's far more meaningful than a rep count. Both hands, then one hand, then fingertips, then no hands. That progression is real progress you can feel in your actual life, because it's the same movement you'll use tomorrow morning. Now let's cover the mistakes, because a handful of them account for most of the problems. The first is starting with a chair that's too low. A lower seat means a deeper, harder movement. If you're finding it difficult, simply use a higher chair. A firm cushion on the seat works too, and you can reduce the height over time. The second is using momentum instead of muscle. Rocking back and swinging forward makes the movement easier by doing less work, which defeats the purpose. The third is dropping quickly into the chair, which throws away half the exercise and can jar your spine and hips. The fourth is doing far too many repetitions on the first day, then being too sore to move for 3 days afterward. The fifth is treating sharp pain as something to push through. It isn't. Sharp pain is information, not weakness. And the sixth is holding your breath and turning every single repetition into a maximal red-faced effort. Breathe normally. Here's the principle that matters more than any of them. Consistency beats intensity. A small, comfortable amount you actually repeat is worth far more than one exhausting session, followed by a week of avoidance. I'm deliberately not giving you a universal number of repetitions because I don't think one exists. Some people will start with 2 or 3 good repetitions, and that is a legitimate starting point. Others will comfortably do considerably more. The right amount depends on your current ability, your health, how you recover, and how much exercise experience you have. Start conservatively. You can always add more next week. Now let's address the objections you may already be thinking about, starting with knees. If your knees are sensitive, the single most useful adjustment is a higher chair. A higher seat means less knee bend, which usually means considerably less discomfort. Use your hands for assistance if that helps, and work within the range that feels comfortable rather than forcing depth. Depth is not the goal here. The movement pattern is the goal. If your lower back is sensitive, avoid exaggerated rounding and avoid throwing your torso forward aggressively. Move slowly, keep the forward lean modest, and let the movement come from your hips and legs. If balance is a concern, set up carefully. A stable chair against a wall, and a countertop or sturdy surface within reach. There's no virtue in an unstable setup. Making it safe is what allows you to keep doing it. And there's a real medical boundary here that I'd rather state plainly than skip. If you've had recent surgery, significant joint problems, or major balance difficulty, get individualized guidance first. The same applies to unstable cardiovascular symptoms or any condition that affects your safety while exercising. A physical therapist or your doctor can tell you far more about your specific situation than any video can, and it's worth distinguishing 2 different sensations. Muscular effort and mild fatigue are normal and expected. Sharp pain, sudden pain, worsening pain, or anything that feels alarming is a different thing entirely, and it means stop. Pain is not a sign the exercise is working. That idea has hurt a lot of people. Now, the honest problem with any exercise recommendation is simple. The best exercise in the world does nothing at all if you never actually do it. So the practical question isn't whether this movement is good, it's how you get it to happen regularly. The most reliable approach is attaching it to something you already do without effort. A few controlled sit-to-stands before your morning walk, while you're already up and moving. Or right after breakfast, using the chair you're already sitting in. Or after your morning coffee, before you get on with the day. Or when you stand up at the end of a TV program you watch regularly. The trigger matters more than the timing. You're borrowing the reliability of a habit you already have. And despite the title of this video, I'm not going to insist that everyone must do this every single day. For some people, a small, comfortable amount fits naturally into a daily routine. And that works well. For others, several times a week is a better fit for their recovery and their life. What matters is that it happens consistently, not that it happens on a schedule someone else designed. One more practical thing. Because people often abandon this in week 2 for the wrong reason. It's worth knowing roughly what to expect so you don't misread normal progress as failure. The earliest changes usually aren't in strength at all. They're in coordination and confidence. The movement starts feeling smoother, less negotiated. You stop bracing before you stand. That can happen within a couple of weeks, and it's a real change, even though nothing looks different. Actual strength changes take longer, and they tend to show up somewhere you weren't watching. Not in the exercise, in a curb you stepped up without noticing, in a chair you rose from without planning it. That's the point where people usually realize something shifted, and it's a genuinely good feeling. And progress is not a straight line. Some days the movement feels heavier than the week before. That's normal, and it's not a reason to stop. It's how every kind of training actually behaves. So let's come back to Helen. Here's what she does not do. She does not stop walking. That would miss the entire point of this video. Her morning walk continues to give her movement, endurance, cardiovascular benefit, time outdoors, and a routine that anchors her day. Those are real benefits, and no strength exercise replaces them. What she adds is a movement that asks her body a completely different question. Because walking asks, how long can you keep going? And the sit-to-stand asks, can you produce enough force to move your own body upward? Both are worth being able to answer. Neither one substitutes for the other. And what she's really training for isn't the exercise itself. It's rising out of her favorite armchair without planning the maneuver first. It's climbing the stairs at her daughter's house without pausing halfway. It's getting out of the car in a parking lot without reaching for the door frame. It's carrying both grocery bags in one trip. It's standing up from the toilet without a grab bar in a bathroom that doesn't have one. It's catching herself when she stumbles instead of going down. It's moving through her own home without constantly scanning the room for something to hold on to. None of that is about muscle. All of it is about staying in charge of her own day. Walking helps you keep going. Strength helps you keep getting up. The chair in the end is not special. The movement is. And after 60, the goal isn't simply to exercise more. It's to protect your ability to keep doing ordinary things without needing someone else to do them for you. Sometimes preserving your freedom begins with something as ordinary as standing up and sitting back down. If you're going to practice this movement, leave the word strong below. I'd like to know who's starting.